which means let's go! So welcome everybody to Harambe Wildlife Reserve. Hello, my name is Stephanie. I'm going to be your safari guide this morning. Take a look up above your head. That's the animal spotting guide. It'll give you an idea of some of the animals we're going to see where we're out there. Now, we might not see every single one, and we won't be able to stop for every single one, so please make sure that you guys have your eyes, your phones, and your cameras ready. I recommend putting whatever you're going to use on a fast-paced shutter, like action mode or sports mode, because I can't guarantee that the animals will be stopping for us either. But it looks like we got the all clear from the warden, so let's start heading on in. The first part of the reserve we're going to enter in through is called the Little Maturing Forest. Some of the animals can be a bit more shy and use their surroundings as a camouflage. So look out by trees or shrubs. That's usually where they like to hide and spend a little bit of their time. And fair warning, a lot of the animals are free roaming, so if we end up stopping in any weird areas, it's probably animal traffic. A lot of the animals kind of just take their time crossing back and forth throughout the road. They might walk within the road. They just do their own thing. If you look very carefully on your right hand side, kind of up along that fence line behind the shrubs, you can find an okapi. The okapi do have slight zebra patterns on their behinds and on their legs, but those patterns just help them blend into their surroundings better. They're actually more closely related to the giraffe. They have the same skull structure, vertebrae, prehensile tongue, and even ossicones as the giraffe. The ossicones are the little things on the tops of their head that look similar to horns, but instead of being made up of bone, they're just made up of cartilage, which is why they have a different name. Unlike their relatives though, they're really good at listening, so they can rotate each ear individually to a full 360 degrees. If you look back on the right there, you can actually see the face a little bit better. And now when we pass by these shrubs on your right hand side, look very carefully at the tops of them. You can see a black and white bird up there. That's a saddle-billed stork. And then the gray animals hiding right behind them are greater kudu. They're all hiding kind of difficult though. But these saddle-billed storks, they're about 4 feet tall and they have a wingspan of 9 feet wide. The females have a bright yellow eye color while the males have a darker brown, so that's the easiest way to tell them apart. Unfortunately though, they don't chirp like most birds because in order to communicate, they just rattle their bills. And it's actually so quiet that we can hear it ourselves. It seems like there's an animal in the road ahead, which is why we're going to hang out here for a second. But those greater kudu, they're the tallest animals throughout the forest. They're about 5 feet tall from their shoulder. And they're actually a lot slower compared to the rest. So their defensive mechanism is just leaping 8 feet straight up into the air over any obstacles. As we're wrapping around, if you take a look on your left-hand side, you can find a black rhino. These guys are very solitary animals. They don't really like being around each other or other animals for too long, so they just do better off on their own. They're also the smallest of the rhino species, only reaching around 3,000 pounds. Now you might notice him flopping his ears back and forth. That's because they are very sensitive to sound. A sound is what they use to determine how far away something is from them. If you actually look on your right hand side, you can see one of the animals that was migrating around. There's also one on your left. These are bongos. They're about 900 pounds, but they're actually a lot shyer than the other animals, so much so that they're always hiding and they get the nickname the ghost of the forest. Whenever they choose to hide, they blend in really well, so if you don't really know what to look for or where to look, you'll definitely miss out on them. Weirdly enough though, usually around rainy weather is the best time to see them because they really love their salt, so they'll walk around and munch on any of the burnt wood that might be close by. Alright, we're exiting the forest, so let's make our way to Safri River. Keep a close eye out in the water. Some of the animals like to float around throughout the water, and some of them can actually hop along the bottom of the riverbed too. So let's see what we might be able to find. I don't think I'm seeing anybody quite yet, so let's keep on going. If you actually look by the branches that are in the water there on the right, you can see a Nile hippo. Now, he might be a little bit hard for everybody to see because of how he's hiding, so if you look on the left, you can actually find a couple more of them. The Nile hippo are about 5,500 pounds. They eat about 90 pounds of food a day, which is mostly fruits and veggies. They can actually stay underneath the water for about 8 minutes at a time, and that's because their nostrils close completely so no water can get inside of them. Then when they need air, their bodies will just naturally rise to the surface so they can catch a breath and they'll go right back underneath. Those birds hanging out with them are pink-backed pelicans that look like they were building a nest. They actually get their name because during mating season, when they lift up their wings, you'll see a light pink color on their backs. If they do happen to lay any eggs, both the male and female will incubate them for about 30 days, and then that's when those little baby pelicans are hatched. But keep looking on your left-hand side there, there's a couple of Nile crocodiles. These guys are about 16 feet long, making them as long as a giraffe can be tall, and they weigh up to about 500 pounds. They usually like to eat fish and anything else they might find throughout the water, but in a single feed, they can eat up to 250 pounds of food, so they can pretty much eat anything. Whenever it starts to get really sunny outside and they're actually basking, you'll see them with their mouths wide open, and that's just a cooling mechanism that they do, like when dogs stick their tongues out. Sometimes in those mouths, like dogs, you'll even find a baby crocodile or crocodile eggs, and that's because they like to hold their babies in their mouth for protection whenever they need to move around. But let's go ahead and make our way towards the savanna now. You'll be able to tell because all throughout you're going to find a really big tree that's coming up on your right-hand side. It's called a baobab tree. It's also known as an upside-down tree because it looks like its roots are up in the air even though they're not. They mainly get the name the trees of life though, and that's because they can store about 30,000 gallons of water in their ginormous roots. So whenever there is a drought, some of the larger animals with horns and tusks, they'll just poke holes inside the trees so the animals still have a source of water. And those trees can end up living over 2,000 years. Some of the other trees are actually looking pretty evenly trimmed, which is a good sign for some taller animals like some giraffes. They can actually extend their tongues anywhere from 17 to 20 inches. So if you measure from your elbow to one of your fingertips, that's how long a giraffe's tongue can be. So just make sure you're looking everywhere very carefully. Let me know if you see them. Even though they are a lot taller, they're actually good at hiding. They like to hide within some of the trees and the bushes, so definitely let me know. But before that, it looks like on your right-hand side, there's an ankle-holding cattle. First, you're going to stop up ahead where you can see a couple of the larger horns. Now, those horns can reach an average of around 4 feet tall. Now, they're not heavy at all though, because inside of them is very hollow. They're made up of a honeycomb structure that can help them cool down or heat up whenever they need to. So they really only end up weighing up to about 4 pounds at most. So if you look on the right, you can see a couple of the different size horns there. Now, these cattle are a symbolization of wealth for the Maasai tribe in Africa. So the larger the herd, the rich you are. They keep them inside of thorny bush pins that they make, known as minyata or boma, just so no predators or other tribes can get to them. Do you guys see anybody else hanging around? Vultures! Yeah, there are some vultures. Oh, that's why. If you look on your left-hand side, all the way in the far right corner back there, you can see an African wild dog. I'm going to go really slow so everybody can get a chance to see him. But they're one of the world's most successful mammals for hunting because they like to hunt in packs. They're very fast. They can get to speeds of about 55 miles per hour. But when hunting, they'll chase their prey for 3.5 miles at 35 miles per hour. Because of that, they have a successful hunting rate of 90%. On the far left-hand side, those are sable antelope. Their horns are long and curved backwards like that, just to protect them against any predators that try attacking them from behind or jumping on their backs. It works so well that even when coming face to face with predators like a lion, the lions would just get scared and run away. Those animals are actually the emblem for Harambe Wildlife Reserve. So when we were first entering it and you saw that big poster on the side, that was the animal that was on it. On your right and on your left, those are some termite mounds. They're usually made up of the animal's spit, their dung, and the dirt and sand as well. But that's what some of the taller animals like those giraffes were looking for, and even elephants use for their scratching posts. Of course, you also see the animals rubbing up on each other, or using their horns and tusks if they got them, and sometimes they'll just rub up on the trees too. It looks like throughout the hill on your right there's a couple different animals. You're going to find a couple of Hartman Mountain zebras. Then the smaller antelope with white belly all the way kind of in the right corner back there are springbok. And the gray ones are white bearded wildebeest. Now those zebras' hooves are a little bit smaller than most zebras, just so that way they don't fall off the edges of the mountains they do live on. And when they're smaller, they actually imprint on their mother's striping, so that's how they can tell their mothers apart from the other zebras. And it's just because, unlike most animals with patterns, no two zebras ever have the same stripes. But you yourself can tell when a zebra is black with white stripes or white with black stripes just by the tips of their noses. That can help tell you what their base color is. So the springbuck in the far right corner, they're the smallest of all antelope, only reaching around 3 feet tall from their shoulder. They get their name because they do a thing called pronking, where they leap 6 feet in the air whenever they get scared. But a lot of people don't know that they're also very fast. Those little guys can reach anywhere from 50 to 60 miles per hour, so they can actually be as fast as a cheetah. Those white-bearded wildebeest, they migrate about 1,000 miles throughout the year, in groups of over 1 million of them at a time. But they don't only migrate with wildebeest, they migrate with other animals as well for added protection, so that way they know when those animals start running, they all have to start running. On the left, you can find a couple of Maasai giraffes. You can tell they're Maasai giraffes because the ends of their pattern are jagged and uneven. When they're first born, they're born at around 6 feet tall, and they can get anywhere from 18 to 20 feet, so they can be as tall as those trees that you see. And sometimes you can tell the males apart because you'll see them doing a thing called necking, where they just hit each other with their necks, and it's a thing that the males like to do to show dominance between them. So sometimes you like to see the fathers teaching the sons how to do it as they're growing up too. Keep on going this way. There's some knockdown trees, which is a good sign for some African elephants just because of their size. You can tell when they're African elephants because their ears kind of look like the shape of the continent of Africa. So let's see if we can find where they're hiding out. Looks like they're up ahead on the right-hand side, but we're going to stop in a second field where you can see them a lot closer. Because if you look on your left, you can find some mandrills. There's actually one hiding right in the cave there. The others are probably hiding throughout the bushes and the trees. The female mandrills are 20 to 25 pounds, while those large males can get over about 100 pounds. And the bright color on the front of their faces, for the males, they can brighten up whenever they get excited. So it's kind of like they start to blush a little bit. The rest of the group is probably trying to find where the baby is. Her mom is still very overprotective of her because the baby on the reserve is only about 6 months old, so she's still very small. So sometimes it takes a lot of convincing from the group for her mom to let her out and play. But let's take a look at those elephants. So if you look back on the right, you can see them a lot closer. Now when they wiggle their ears back and forth, they can actually use them as fans to cool themselves down by about 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And not only will they do that though, they also have very sensitive skin, so you'll see them pick up things like dirt, sand, and mud, and they'll just throw it on themselves and use it for a sunscreen. Now if you didn't know, at one point not only were elephants being affected by the poachers hunting them for the ivory in their tusks, they were also getting hunted by farmers, and it was only because whenever they would migrate, they were kind of destroying all the farmers' crops. But one farmer decided that he wanted to help save and protect the elephants instead, so he started studying them and found out that elephants are terrified of the sounds of bees. He just built small fences around the crops with beehives attached to them, and it actually worked. Elephants would migrate away from the fenced area, and the farmers were able to make some extra cash for the honey too. It worked so well that they even use that method till this day. It's called the Elephants and the Bees Project. And we're passing by some red clay pins. It looks like there's some scrapings on your right and some footprints to your left, so there's definitely some more animals close by. If you actually look on the left, you can see the 2 youngest males on the reserve kind of wrestling around over there. Don't worry, that's how they like to play their teenage boys, though. Their dad's probably hanging around close by. If they start to play a little bit too rough, their dad will actually separate them and kind of let them know when they're able to come back together again. So if I see where their dad is hiding out, I'll point him out for you guys too. But let's see, if you keep looking on the left, you can see the 2 boys hanging out there. Yeah, so you can see that one kind of hitting his brother with his trunk, like, come play with me. little bit because we're actually getting a lot closer to their dad, and it looks like they don't want to get in trouble. He's a pretty big boy. I believe he weighs up to about 15,000 pounds. So we're gonna take a look at him in a second so you guys can see how large he actually is. So if you look right over there on your left-hand side, you can take a good look at him. Looks like he's walking away. Now, also in the water to your left, you can find some greater flamingos. You can tell that they're greater flamingos because they are the tallest and the lightest shade of pink of all flamingos. They get that pink color from their diet. They mostly eat shrimp, and shrimp has what's called beta carotene that can help give them that pink color. Now, to get any of the sand, you'll actually see them doing what we like to call the shrimp dance, where they kind of just stomp around in one spot so that way they can pick up all of the shrimp from the ground. And it looks like close by your left-hand side, you're going to be able to find an ostrich. We're going to go really slow. We won't be able to stop just because of how close to the road she is, but we'll go slow so you guys can get a good video of her. Alrighty, so the ostrich are really fast. They can get to speeds of about 45 miles per hour. And they're pretty strong too. With a single kick, they actually have the power to kill a human. They can lay eggs that weigh about 7 to 9 pounds, and it takes about 2 dozen chicken eggs to make up one of their ostrich eggs. And the eggs are so strong that if one of you were to stand on them, they're not going to break or even crack. But since their eyes are so big, their brain is actually only the size of about a walnut. If you look throughout your left-hand side, kind of where these big pile of rocks are in the middle, if you look just to the top left of them, you can see some cheetahs hanging out there. Oh, there's one. Now, the cheetahs can reach up to 60 miles per hour in just 3 seconds, but they have been known to get to speeds of about 75 miles per hour. And to help them out with their speed, their claws aren't retractable like most cats, so they'll just always stay out to help grip onto the ground, and their tails can stick straight out as a source of balance. Then, of course, the black teardrop structure on the front of their face, that will just help to reflect the sun since they do all their hunting during the day. There's a couple more of them taking little naps on your left-hand side, kind of in the top right corner as well. Now, these big pile of rocks to your left-hand side are called a copy, and that's actually a good sign for some other predators like some lions. You just gotta help me look very carefully. That's because lions are more of a nocturnal species. During the day, they rest about 16 to 20 hours. Since they are more nocturnal though, during the day they have about the same kind of vision that we have, and when nighttime rolls around, their vision can get about 6 times better than all of ours. Do you guys see them yet? No? Alright, let's wrap around. Don't see them quite yet. Well, there's one of the females. You can kind of see her head hanging out by the edge of the rock there. It looks like the male's all the way on the other side with another female as well. So we'll pull up that way so you can see them a lot better.
There they are.
And if you didn't know, the reason why the males have the manes and the females don't, it's just for their own protection since they do most of the fighting for the fight. So that's why they have them. Trying to stop kind of at an angle so you can kind of see the male's face. He's hiding at a difficult spot, so I think you're only going to be able to see his mane sticking up. But since they are still resting, I highly recommend when you're walking throughout the park that you try to listen very carefully. Whenever they wake up, they actually like to give a big roar to warn off any of the animals that might be close by. And you can hear that roar from 5 miles away, so you guys can hear it all the way at the front of the park. But an easier animal to spot is hanging out on your left-hand side. It's a warthog. The warthogs are the world's largest burrowing animal. This means they dig all those holes you see and hide away in them. They'll go inside of them backwards and keep their tusks sticking straight out so that way they can look a little bit bigger than they actually are. They also get their name because on the front of their faces they have about 4-inch long warts that protect them against predators that stick the claws in the burrowing hole. Now the little brown antelope all the way to your far right past those shrubs is called a bottebok. And I'll tell you about him in just a second because if you keep looking on your right you can see some rhinos and some ostrich eggs.
Oh.
Now those rhinos are white rhinos. They get their name from the Afrikaan word white. It's spelled V-I-T. It just means wide, and that's because their noses are flat and wide. But when Easterners were traveling, they misheard them and thought that they were saying white rhinos, so that's why we call them that today. But they're really big. They can get up to about 5,000 pounds, and they're pretty fast for their weight too. They can actually charge at 35 miles per hour. Yeah, so that little bottebok, at one point because of poaching, there was actually only 7 of the little guys in the entire world. But a farmer kind of just liked the way that they looked, and he decided to keep them in with his other farm animals. And he actually got their numbers to multiply and save their species from extinction. Of course, once he realized that they were going extinct, he just released them back out into the wild, and thankfully now there's about a couple hundred of them out there. But it does seem like we're making our way closer to the village, so I think it might be it for us. But definitely come back though, because you guys never know what animals you might see next or what they might do next. And the last safari will leave until 5 o'clock this afternoon. And I already told you a couple examples of ways that humans have actually helped save a lot of the animals. But a couple of ways that you guys can do it in 45 minutes. You can even talk to the animal nutritionist and find out what it takes to feed the animals and how Disney grows a lot of the food here on property. There's other animals there too, like furry friends, like goats, sheep, donkeys, pigs, and chickens, and even reptiles, insects, and invertebrates. Rafiki will be closing at 5 o'clock as well, but the last train will leave the station at 4:30 this afternoon. But let's take the word and clear the path for us. No Harambe, friends. That's Swahili and it means to go well. Go well, go wild. I hope that you have an amazing rest of your day out there, and thanks again so much for coming along with me. And please be sure to watch your step on the way down.